everyone, I'm Rachel Morgan, and I'm here to share with you my final pre-internship portfolio. I did it in two different ways: for reflections in the field with anecdotal observations, which I will show you in the next video, and the other way that I collected evidence of my pre-internship was with this fabulous binder that I designed myself. So you can see I have an inspirational poster that I made earlier to remind me of why I'm there. And then when we open it up, I have a whole bunch of tabs that I used. So to begin with, instructional strategies, anything I came across in the field that would be useful, anything that I actually used I highlighted so I knew, and then I did refer to it a whole bunch throughout the time in the field for ideas, resources, and ways that I could maneuver my lessons in different ways. Then I have my PDP sheets, and these are all just blank PDP sheets I found and was given by my amazing faculty advisor to keep on file. I will keep them for the rest of my internship and professional time as a teacher, just to see where I'm at, if I'm meeting the goals, if I'm focusing on the behaviors that I'm wanting to isolate or the lessons that I want to run in a different way, and to keep track of my students, for sure. Next, I had my original scope and sequence here, which I'm certain if you're in pre-internship looks nothing like what actually happened in the field. But I wanted to keep a record of where I was going and the thoughts that I had. Some of this I got to and ran really fantastic lessons, and some of the reflexive work that I did through my anecdotal observations led to different lessons and different outcomes. So that was very informative, and it was nice to refer back to in the end. Then I have my actual in-field lessons. So anything that I ran in the field, maybe I wouldn't fill out this front end with my curricular outcomes because I already have those on my I can statements or indicators, but I had the plan for every single lesson and what I was going to do on the board for a hook, if I was going to be asking them any additional questions to get them into the lesson, if I was moving furniture to try to build some excitement for the lesson too. I did that a bunch and it worked really well. And then also if I was following up with students on their formative reflections, we had a Padlet space as well as a personal reflection between myself and the students. So I always highlighted the good work that I saw. I tried to keep it diverse as to which students I was featuring. That was really easy because once the majority of the class bought into my lessons, the quality of work went way up. And as soon as they saw that I would be sharing and celebrating good work, the quality of work went way up as well. My co-op instructor was very impressed with what we came up with as a group and the final project. So that is super heartwarming and an excellent end to pre-internship, I would say. Then I have reflections, and these are all the target sheets that I received back, and then any feedback that I thought I needed to know to remember from both my faculty advisor, my co-op, as well as my co-op partner. So absolutely everything that happened in the field that they saw that I wouldn't have seen is here. I've gone through it all, and I'm going to keep it too. A lot of it is really encouraging to remind me of where I came from, and other things are really good notes for me to remember in future lessons, things that I didn't consider. So very useful, and I will keep these. I'll be doing this for internship as well, and hopefully continuing this process when I'm actually an educator as well. Secondly, second to last, I had assessment evidence. The majority of my assessment evidence was actually in the final projects and also in a separate document that I made. So this is empty here, but my assessment evidence was throughout my lessons and then anything I collected back from the students. And I can show you now, actually, just one second. So throughout my unit, it was on significant relationships and identity. We went through a bunch of different lessons that led to informed perspectives of community and how that can be affective on our identity and our person, movements, fighting for rights, equality, gender, race, and especially our First Nations contemporaries in our schools today. So there was a lot of content that we discussed, but it was always in relation to the students, how I could introduce a new community movement, method for attaining equality, rights, a diverse group of of students, of people represented, LGBTQ++, of course, or treaty education in a respectful way to my students that then would relate to their lives and their learning and how their own identity might reflect or not reflect those characteristics and those important things. So it was a really interesting journey for myself, a great unit for learning my students, for learning who they are, and I honestly recognized significant growth in my students. This hadn't been something they had tackled before, and so learning about themselves alongside their peers and then learning about their best friends that they had no idea were Jewish for the entire time that they've been friends was a moment that will blow my mind for the rest of my life. Or finding out the fights that my students have had for bullying and against bullying and to stand up for their friends. And it was really, honestly, a very meaningful unit. I got wonderful work back, and we really grew together and worked together. So I used these envelopes. You can kind of just see on this one. It's not as decorated as the majority of them, but that's okay. We began the unit by talking about our own identities and mapping it out on these envelopes, and then they filled in the bubbles as we went. And this student was only there for about 5 of my lessons. He was gone for the majority of it, but he still left with impressions on his identity, which I think is very significant. The envelopes were fantastic. They were for the reflective journal between myself and the student that were kept confidential unless I specifically mentioned that I would be sharing their good work, and they knew it was a celebration of their work. The best part was they're in grade 8 and they lose everything. I don't know how, but they lose everything. It's crazy. So at the end of the lessons or time to reflect, they had to hand everything back to me. Everything. So by the end of my unit, I had assessment pieces from reflections, formative feedback from myself and how they had responded to it, rough drafts for the final project, board work that we had done together on anti-bullying strategies, and that was, again, something that came up reflexively. So it was pretty powerful, a great way for me to sort through the evidence of learning and for learning for my students, and it also kept all of my assessment pieces nice and organized. So, very happy with that. And in the end, I only lost 2 envelopes. I didn't lose them, but out of the 28 students, only 2 never got returned to me. So that's a huge success in my books. So I figured I would make a different video about my anecdotal notes, just to go into a little detail about them and how I use them and reflected on them. And so finally, the end of my massive portfolio was a section for worksheets. And this ended up being so handy and so much more handy than I ever expected it would be. So every single worksheet that I used, regardless if it was Clock Buddies, if it was this one, The Power of Words, where I designed a spreadsheet for them to go through who is famous for having dreams of equality and responding to it, when Canada helped make LGBTQ gay marriage legal. Who is represented within the rainbow flag? What does equality mean? These kinds of answers, all for the students to fill in and feedback. And then for me to grow from their responses. If I had any sheets like that, any worksheets, math worksheets that I handed out, anything, I put it in this section. And to begin with, I did not think that that would be such an important thing to do, because I figured all of my students would have their worksheets, all of my students would keep those worksheets, and when I handed them out, everyone would be there. But as you, as a wise and probably currently working educator, are aware, that's not how it went down. So having these worksheets with me all the time was super handy. I would have students that lose them. I would have students that came in from different classes at different times and needed one. I would have students who got suspended or who weren't in school for the first week and a half of my time because they were sick. So having extra worksheets on hand proved to save me a ton of time in the end. So yeah, this is my finished portfolio. I'm very proud of it. You can check out the actual unit that I ran on my website on this WordPress. It's under the Significant Relationships unit. I have posted it all. It's just in a Google Doc and it's free for everyone. So you can head on in there and go through what I've done. I have included student pieces of writing, references for you to refer to should you want to use some answers to help students begin with their thoughts. I have pictures of every single exercise that we did and really great work that was produced from it. And then finally, examples of the final project. So have a look at that. All of the lessons are written with curricular outcomes for grade 8, and it really was an excellent unit. I introduced treaty education, I had some science in there, and I had some social studies. So have a look, see what you like, take what you need, and that's all of it. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I will be making another video immediately after this one for my fabulous anecdotal observations.